Hello, fourth graders. It is Monday, April 6th, and you can tell it's Monday because I'm wearing a tie. It's tie day. Not just because I have a pink and purple unicorn behind me, but because it's Monday. I wear ties on Monday. So thanks for joining me here today. It's a big day, important things, a lot of things to cover today, and we got to continue with our read aloud. So let's get started. Couple reminders. Today is a big day because we do have some changes to your learning opportunities at home. We're going to focus on a lot more IXL stuff for reading and math. I'll talk more over that. Just give me a second. I'll go over that. But if you have any questions at all, let me know and I'll help you out. Or if you have any questions getting logged in, message me as well and I'll try to get your login or anything like that. So let me know. Make sure you go get your free lunch and breakfast stuff at the high school. Those are big things. Keep in contact. I like hearing from you guys. I like the Google chats. I like everything. Keep in touch with me. I love hearing from you guys. So please keep in contact with me. And I like to hear from you guys. So keep that up. And make sure you guys are staying safe and staying home. That's really important right now. So just keep up the good work if you're staying home. Couple of things. Move for as far as what we should be doing today. For as far as math goes, keep up the prodigy. Keep doing that 15 minutes or so a day. Some of you guys are doing a great job on that. I want you to continue. If you haven't been logging on to Prodigy, keep doing that. That's a really important thing to do, and it keeps that refresh going as far as where we're going. So make sure you do that. IXL is what we're going to focus on. No longer the Wonders math journals and the home links. If you want to keep doing that, you're welcome to. We're not saying you can't, but we want you to really focus on the IXL opportunities as well. I'm also going to post a Kahoot today. It should be a pretty good one. It's just a dirty 31, so do the best that you can, and maybe I'll post the top scores. So I think you can take it more than once if you want to try to improve your score. But I'll post a Kahoot on Dirty 30 Facts. Reading, make sure you're reading every day. Keep that up. Hopefully you've got books at home. You continue to read those. Make sure that you're reading those and taking AR tests. Do the best that you can. Also, check out Miss Summerfeld's page for the IXL pages she wants you to work on during reading. So check her page out as well. Social studies. I posted a video last week. Check that out again. Socrative. I only got a couple responses so far on what your favorite ad is. I want to know what you guys like for ads. So let me know what you think is your best or your favorite ad and tell me what it is. I'm just curious. Post that. I want to know. Also, I did post a Kahoot. It should be a review. And it's just Wisconsin symbols. What Wisconsin symbols do you like? Or sorry, which Wisconsin symbols do we have? And so it should be a review. Some of those are a little tougher, knowing that the state soil is Antigo silt loam. That's a tougher one. State insects, the honeybee. Some of those are a little bit tougher. Some are a little bit easier. Even though the robin is a state bird, it is our state bird. But take a look at that one and feel free to challenge your parents or anybody else, see if they know which ones are which and if they can do as well as you, knowing that the state dances, the polka and things like that. If I'd stay active, I know it's going to be we had a really nice weekend, but we're going to have some crummy days coming up with rain and other stuff, so try to stay active. It's really important. Just keep being active, doing something. Check out Mr. Buckley's pages and stuff like that. So keep being active. It's important and good for you. So make sure you're doing those. Here are those things that we're sending home on IXL. This is just the math side, so make sure you're checking out Miss Summerfeld's page for the reading, but hopefully this will help you with the reading and math. So I want you to work on letter D, which is multiplication. So when you log into IXL, look at letter D. This is multiplication. I want you doing numbers 1 and 7. So number 1 is just multiplication facts 1 to 10. Number 7 is identifying factors. Factors are different than multiples, right? So if I was talking about the factors of 10, we'd be talking about 1, 2, 5, and 10. The multiples of 10 would be different. The multiples of 10 would be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, da, 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 da. So I'm talking about the factors. So I want you doing 1 and 7. I also want you doing some adding and subtracting fractions. So take a look at number 9. So letter Q, 9. And that's adding and subtracting fractions. It's a word problem. So you have to decide whether you're going to add or subtract them based on the word problem. So that's a really important one. Then we're going to do some perimeter and we'll do some area. So those two. So we got a perimeter and an area. Work on both of those. So numbers 1 and 9 of BB. Not B, but BB. Those are different. It's actually after a Z. Like it goes X, Y, Z, A, A, B, B. This is BB. It's not a typo. There's two B's there. The geometric measurement. So take a look at numbers 1 and 9. So it's just these 5 things. There's only 5 of them, right? And that seems like a lot, but this is for all week, okay? So between Monday and Friday, we want you working on these 5, okay? So just throughout the week, all right? Doing this all week, okay? Not just today, but all week. So it seems like a lot. It's not. It's throughout the week. We started City of Ember last Friday. Hopefully you guys like this beginning of it. We've got this science fiction, futuristic kind of story. It's a new genre I haven't read yet this year. So I'm excited about it. And so we've got this story taking place in the City of Ember, of course. We've got a couple of characters. We've met Lena. We've met Dune, and they just received their jobs for the city and what they're going to be doing. So hopefully you guys are enjoying this. I'll continue reading the first part of chapter 2. It's a really long chapter, so I did split it up. But we'll start reading this, and I hope you guys are enjoying this so far. So here again is the city, right? I have this map up here. I put this on here for a purpose. Again, here's the legend, and I did highlight this. I tried to color code it for you guys to make life easier. Lena's apartment's over here. We got Dune's apartment is over here. Here's the river that they talked about that supplied power to the city. So these are important things. There's the gathering hall and the clock tower. These are going to be important things to the story. So, and here's the school. This is where they were. They were at the school in the first chapter. So keep in mind of all of these things and the street names and all of these different parts. So that's important to the story. We'll come back to it, but this is always here. I left off on chapter 2. We finished off. They switched jobs. Dune and Lena switched jobs. And we kind of talked about that and the mayor and all of that stuff. So this one is a message to the mayor. We learned a little bit about the mayor and what he thinks of Dune, which wasn't much. Lena often took different routes between the school and home. Sometimes, just for variety, she'd go the way around Swallow Square, or the way up by the shoe repair shops on Levine Street. But today, she took the shortest route because she was eager to get home and tell her news. She ran fast and easily through the streets of Ember. Every corner, every alley, every building was familiar to her. She always knew where she was, though most streets looked more or less the same. All of them were lined with old 2-story stone buildings, the wood of their window frames and doors long unpainted. On the street levels there were shops. Above the shops were apartments where people lived. Every building at the place where the wall met the roof was equipped with a row of floodlights, big cone-shaped lamps that cast a long yellow glare. Hopefully you guys are kind of picturing this, right? It's this weird city with lights everywhere because it's so dark. And you're kind of picturing what these buildings would look like and what Lena would look like as she was walking through here. Stone walls, lighted windows, lumpy, muffled shapes of people. Lena flew by them. Her slender legs felt immensely strong, like the wood of a bow that flexes and springs. She darted around obstacles, broken furniture left for trash heaps or for scavengers, stoves and refrigerators that were past repair, peddlers sitting on the pavement and their wares spread out around them. She leapt over cracks and potholes. When she came to Hafter Street, she slowed a little. The street was deep in shadow. 4 of its streetlights had not been fixed. For a second, Lena thought of the rumor she'd heard about the light bulbs, that some kinds were completely gone. She was used to shortages of things, everyone was, but not of light bulbs. If the light bulbs in the street lamps ran out, the only lights would be inside the buildings. What would happen then? How could people find their way through the streets in the dark? Somewhere inside her, a black worm of dread stirred. She thought about Doom's outburst in class. Could things really be as bad as he said? She didn't want to believe it. She pushed that thought away. As she turned into Budlow Street, she sped up again. She passed the line of customers waiting to get into the vegetable market. There were shopping bags draped over their arms. At the corner of Oliver Street, she dodged a group of washers trudging along with their bags of laundry, and some movers carrying away a broken table. She passed by a street sweeper shoving dust around with his broom. I am so lucky, she thought, to have the job that I want, and because of Dune Harrow, of all people. When they were younger, Lena and Dune had been friends. Together, they had explored the back alleys of the dimly lit edges of the city. But in their 4th year of school, they had begun to grow apart. It was starting one day during the hour of free time, when children in their class were playing in the front steps of the school. I can go down 3 steps at a time, some would boast. I can hop down on one foot, someone else would say. The others would chime in. I can do a handstand against the pillar. I can leapfrog over a trash can. As soon as one child did something, all the rest would do it too, to prove they could. Lena could do it all. Even when the dares got wilder, she yelled out the wildest one of all, I can climb the light pole. For a second, everyone stared at her, but Lena dashed across the street, took off her shoes and socks, and wrapped herself around the cold metal of the pole. Pushing with her bare feet, she inched upward. She didn't get very far before she lost grip and fell back down. The children laughed, and so did she. I didn't say I could climb to the top, she explained. I just said I could climb it. The others swarmed forward to try. Lizzie wouldn't take off her socks. Her feet were too cold. She said, so she kept sliding back. 40 Penn wasn't strong enough to get more than a foot off the ground. Next came Dune. He took off his shoes and socks and placed them neatly at the foot of the pole. Then he announced in a serious way, I'm going to the top. He clasped the pole and started upward, pushing his feet and knees sticking to the sides. He pulled himself upward, pushed again. He was higher now than Lydia had been. But suddenly his hands slid and he came plummeting down. He landed on the bottom with his legs poking up into the air. Lena laughed. She shouldn't have. He might have been hurt, but it looked so funny that she couldn't help it. He wasn't hurt. He could have jumped up and grinned and walked away, but Dune didn't take things lightly. When he heard Lena and the others laughing, his face darkened and his tempers rose inside of him like hot water. Don't you dare laugh at me, he said to Lena. I did better than you did. That was a stupid idea anyway, a stupid idea to climb to that pole. And as he was shouting, red in the face, their teacher, Mrs. Polster, came out and into the steps and saw him. She took him by the shirt collar into the school director's office, where he got a scolding he didn't think he deserved. After that day, Lena and Dune barely looked at each other when they passed in the hallway. At first it was because they were fuming about what had happened. Dune didn't like being laughed at. Lena didn't like being shouted at. After a while, the memory of the light pole incident faded, but by then they had got out of the habit of friendship. By the time they were 12, they knew each other only as classmates. Lena was friends with Vindy Chance, Orly Gordon, and most of all, red-haired Lizzie Briscoe, who could run almost as fast as Lena and could talk 3 times faster. Now as Lena sped towards home, she felt immensely grateful to Dune and hoped that he'd come to no harm in the pipeworks. Maybe they'd be friends again. She'd like to ask him about the pipeworks. She was curious about it. When she got to Greystone Street, she passed Clary Lane, who was probably on her way to the greenhouses. Clary waved to her and called out, "What job?" And Lena called back, "Messenger," and ran on. Lena lived on Quilliam Square, over the yarn shop run by her grandmother. When she got the shop, she burst into the door and cried, "Granny, I'm a messenger." Granny's shop had once been a tidy place where each ball of yarn and spool of thread had its spots in the cubbyholes and lined the walls. All the yarn and thread came from the old clothes that she had gotten too shabby to be worn. Granny unraveled sweaters and picked apart dresses and jackets and pants. She wound the yarn into balls and thread them onto spools, and people bought them to use in making new clothes. These days, the shop was a mess. Long loops and strands of yarn dangled out of the cubbyholes, and the browns and the grays and the purples were mixed into one of the orcs and olive greens with the ochras and the olive greens and the dark blues. Granny's customers had spent half an hour on snarling the rust red yarn from the mud brown, or trying to fish out the end of the thread from the tangled wad. Granny wasn't much help. Most days she would just doze behind the counter in a rocking chair. That's where she was when Lena burst in with her news. Lena saw Granny and had forgotten to knot up her hair that morning. It was stranded out from her head in a wild white frizz. Granny stood up, looked puzzled. "You aren't a messenger, dear. You're a schoolgirl," she said. "But Granny, today was assignment day. I got my job, and I'm the messenger." Granny's eyes lit up. She slapped her hand down the counter. "I remember," she cried. "Messenger, that's a grand job. You'll be good at it." Lena's little sister toddled out from behind the counter on unsteady legs. She had a round face and round eyes. At the top of her head was a sprig of brown hair tied with a scrap of red yarn. She grabbed onto Lena's knees. "Weena, Weena." Lena bent over and took the child's hands. "Poppy, your big sister's got a good job. Are you happy, Poppy? Are you proud of me?" Poppy said something that sounded like, "Hoppy, hoppy, hoppy." Lena laughed, hoisted her up, and danced with her around the shop. Lena loved her little sister so much that it was like an ache under her ribs. The baby and Granny were all in the family she had now. 2 years ago, when the coughing sickness was raging through the city again, her father had died. Some months later, her mother, giving birth to Poppy, had died too. Lena missed her parents with an ache that was strong as what she had felt for Poppy, only it was a hollow feeling inside of a full one. "When do you start?" asked Granny. "Tomorrow," said Lena. "I report to the messenger station at 8 o'clock. "You'll be a famous messenger," said Granny. "Fast and famous." Taking Poppy with her, Lena went out of the shop and climbed the stairs to their apartment. It was only a small apartment, only 4 rooms, but there was enough stuff in there to fill 20. There were things that belonged to Lena's parents, her grandparents, and even their grandparents, old, broken, cracked, threadbare things that had been patched and repaired dozens or hundreds of times. People in Ember rarely threw anything away. They had made the best possible use of what they had. In Lena's apartment, layers of worn rugs and carpets covered the floor, making it soft and uneven underfoot. Against one wall squatted a sagging couch and round wooden balls for legs, and on the couch were blankets and pillows, so many that you had to toss them on the floor before you could sit down. Against the opposite wall stood 2 wobbly tables that held a clutter of plates and bottles and cups and bowls unmatched forks and spoons, little piles of scrap paper, bits of strings wound up untidy wads, and a few stubby pencils. There were 4 lamps, 2 tall ones that stood on the floor and 2 short ones that stood on tables. And in uneven lines up the near of the ceiling were hooks that held coats and shawls and nightgowns and sweaters and shelves that held pots and pans and jars and unreadable labels, the boxes of buttons and pins and tacks. There were no shelves. The walls had been decorated with things of beauty. A label from a can of peaches, a few dried yellow squash flowers, a strip of faded but still pretty purple cloth. There were drawings, too. Lena had done the drawings out of her imagination. They showed the city that looked somewhat like Ember, except that its buildings were lighter and taller and had more windows. One of the drawings had fallen to the floor. Lena retrieved it and pinned it back up. She stood for a minute looking at the pictures. Over and over she'd drawn the same city. Sometimes she drew it as seen from afar. Sometimes she chose one of its buildings and drew it in detail. She put it up in stairways and street lamps and carts. Sometimes she tried to draw the people who lived in the city, though she wasn't good at drawing people. Their heads always came out too small, and their hands always looked like spiders. One picture showed a scene in which the people of the city greeted her when she arrived, the first person they had ever seen to come from elsewhere. They argued with each other about who should be the first to invite her home. Lena could see this city so clearly in her mind, she almost believed it was real. She knew it couldn't be, though. The book of the City of Ember, which all children study in school, taught otherwise. The City of Ember was made for us long ago by the builders. The book said, it was only light and dark in the world. Beyond Ember, the darkness goes on forever in all directions. Lena had been to the outer border of Ember. She stood at the edge of the trash heaps and gazed into the darkness beyond the city. The unknown regions. No one had ever gone as far into the unknown regions, or at least no one had gone far and returned. And no one had ever arrived in Ember from the unknown regions either. As far as anyone knew, the darkness did go on forever. Still, Lena wanted the other city to exist. In her imagination, it was so beautiful, and it seemed so real. Sometimes she longed to go there and take everyone in Ember with her. But she wasn't thinking about the other city now. Today, she was happy to be right where she was. She set Poppy on the couch. "Wait there," she said. She went into the kitchen where there was an electric stove and a refrigerator that no longer worked and was used to store glasses and dishes, so Poppy couldn't get to them. Above the refrigerator there were shelves holding more pots and jars, more spoons and knives, a wind-up clock that Granny always forgot to wind, and a long row of cans. Lena tried to keep the cans in alphabetical order, so she could find what she always wanted quickly. But Granny always messed them up. Now, she saw, there were beans at the end of the row and tomatoes in the beginning. She picked out one of the cans labeled baby drink and a jar of boiled carrots, opened them, poured the liquid into a cup and the carrots into the little dish, and took them back to the baby on the couch. Poppy dribbled baby drink down her chin. She ate some of her carrots and poked the others between the couch cushions. For a moment, Lena felt almost perfectly happy. There was no need to think about the fate of the city right now. Tomorrow, she'd be a messenger. She wiped the orange goop off Poppy's chin. "Don't worry," she said. "Everything will be all right." And we'll find out if everything's all right tomorrow. So stay tuned, and we'll take a look at what's behind this box tomorrow. I hope you guys are enjoying it. Kind of a different story, different than Hatchet, mostly because of the science fiction element. I hope you guys are enjoying this story. It's a different one, but I'm enjoying it, and I hope you guys are too. Take a look at those different things that I sent you guys. I hope you have time to look at the IXL things. You've got all week to work on them. If you have any questions at all, please let me know, and I'll be happy to help you with them. I hope you guys had a great weekend, and I hope you have a great week. I look forward to seeing you sometime. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Have a great day. Thank you.